There we go. So we're going to have a short questions and answers session like we did after the first period. So I don't know if there's going to be any hands this time round, is there? We've got one straight ahead here.
I'm just checking the mic's working. Maybe going back to Ken McCarty's comments earlier about how decorated he was as an individual. Is it not surprising, or was it potentially surprising at the time, that he wasn't put up for knighthood when he won the Nobel Award, and perhaps that could have saved a lot of this miscommunication over the years?
What was the missing bit? That he wasn't knighted?
Correct, yeah. Just thinking about the fact that Fleming was knighted, and I'm not sure I get why he wasn't given that recognition.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe Banting had the ear of the king. Banting, of course, was knighted. Sir Frederick Banting, when that was reintroduced in Canada, he was knighted. But there's, as we've heard, and as we haven't heard because we haven't had time to go into it, there was a lot of projected antipathy towards MacLeod about how he had stolen Banting's great idea. Jim told us Banting's great idea wasn't so great after all, didn't directly lead to the discovery, and yet Banting had that backing and he was knighted. I don't know if it had been Sir John MacLeod, whether there would still be people today probably telling you that Banting and Best discovered insulin. I suspect there would have been.
Thank you, Ken. There was something I wanted to say at this point, and that leads nicely into it, just what you said there, that MacLeod wasn't knighted. It was to do with the Nobel Prize Award, and I've heard numerous people quote that Banting and Best won the Nobel Prize. And when I've corrected them, the one or two that I've physically heard saying it, they've said, but Banting shared his Nobel Prize with Best. Now, I just wanted Erling Norby to clarify, I'm certain it's the fact you cannot share a Nobel Prize award. You can share the prize money, but you cannot share the Nobel Prize award. Am I correct in saying that, Erling?
Yes, actually. So it's originally Nobel's idea was to have the one prize recipient. We learned rather soon that maybe you need to have room for two. And first, much later, in the mid-30s, for the first time, we decided at the Karolinska Institute to give it for three. That was a discovery of B12. So this is something that evolved, but then we came to a discussion. We must have a cut-off limit, and so three, by praxis, became the maximum number. But that was not settled in 1923. But we had two cases of two prize winners before, so it's not the first time that we had that. So this is the limitation, the numbers. Yeah. Actually, it varies a little with the organization, because at the Royal Swedish Academy of Science, we can give, in principle, we could even give to an organization. And then if you look at something like a Higgs particle, there were two original proponents that proposed the existence of the Higgs particle, but it was discovered at CERN, the big organization. So theoretically, one could have given to the two the proposal of the existence and to the organization that discovered it, but not been used as yet, but it's there. But Karolinska Institute, maximum three. So.
Super. Thank you for clarifying that, Erling. And circling back to your comment that you made there as well, I think basically the narrative has always been from the discovery that it's Banting and Best, and that's been an incorrect narrative, because it quite simply is not the case that they solely discovered insulin. They were part of the team of four, hence today. And I think Neva's away now, and she mentioned about the $100 bill having a bottle of insulin on and mentioning Banting and Best being the co-discoverers. Sadly, that happened back in, was it 2011, Jim? Chris? And obviously in 2011, that was just the year before things were starting to take shape with Michael Bliss's changing the narrative from his book, etc. It took 30 years to get to that point. 30 years after his book, MacLeod was inducted into the Medical Hall of Fame, the Canadian Medical Hall of Fame. Now, that was 90 years after the discovery before MacLeod was recognised with that prestigious award, and sadly 77 years after he died before he was getting recognised properly. So that was where the ocean liner started to turn, and we've just been constantly chipping away at that incorrect narrative. Ken, my very good friend that sits behind me here, has been working on that for longer than we have. So we're getting there. That ocean liner, like I said in the first half, is gradually starting to turn, and it would be super just to see that all four get the just recognition that they deserve for the part that they played in the discovery of insulin. So I'll stop speaking there and I'll ask if there's any last questions. One more.
So I was wondering, like the first question that was asked in the first section about how you're getting it out to the public in Canada, what are you doing to get it to in the education system, to the young people here in Scotland?
I'm going to ask John to answer that one.
I didn't quite hear the question.
Oh, you didn't catch the question? Okay. Do you want to repeat that?
No,
So I was just wondering, how do you get the concept of MacLeod's legacy out to the young people here in Scotland?
Okay. So how do we get MacLeod's legacy out to the children in Canada through the education system? In Scotland? Sorry, yes. I thought it was Canada. I beg your pardon. I thought we were trying to turn the...
Okay, I wasn't expecting to answer a question. One of the things that we're doing is we're focusing on storytelling. So that was one of the motivations behind making the MacLeod Memorial Scotland's first storytelling statue. We tried to make it as engaging as possible, not just a statue that's up on a pillar, but it's something that you can sit down with, you can take selfies with, you can scan the QR code and hear his story. And we find that that's more engaging for children. So now schools here in Aberdeen are bringing children to the site. They're doing field trips to see the memorial. Cruise ships are bringing their passengers to see the memorial as well. And I'm a former screenwriter, and I would love to do a feature film someday about J.J.R. MacLeod and the discovery of insulin. I'm also working on a children's book about the history of insulin. So it's those kind of things, I think, telling the story to a younger generation that will really change things here in Aberdeen and Scotland.
Thank you, Kimberly. If that's all the questions, we have got one more surprise announcement to make, and I'm going to ask Ken McCarty to come forth and tell you.
Not him again. Here we go. MacLeod, there's more. Where did they do for? Oh, here we go. Thank you. This is Michael Williams. Michael Williams, Aberdonian, attended Aberdeen Grammar School, but he'd never heard of MacLeod. Went to Aberdeen University Medical School, never heard of MacLeod. He would have been in the physiology department where MacLeod was in post when he died, 14 years after MacLeod died, as Regius Professor of Physiology. Never heard of him. Michael Williams went on to spend almost all his working life in Aberdeen, and he became a specialist in diabetes. And he'd never heard of MacLeod until he read a note in the Lancet in 1982 to say that some Canadian upstart called Bliss had written a new history of the discovery of insulin. I can only imagine how Mike's chin bounced on the floor when he read this book about a guy who had gone to his school, his university, and had been awarded a share of the Nobel Prize for discovery of insulin when he was a diabetologist. Mike was so impressed by Bliss's book and the story, he met Michael Bliss when Michael came 89, his first post book publication visit to Aberdeen, and was encouraged by Michael to write a biography. Give the next push of the button, please. Thank you. He produced this biography of MacLeod in 1993, the only comprehensive biography of MacLeod. During the pandemic, the ageing Dr. Williams, who by then was appalled at how old he was getting because his successor in post had been long retired, we sat outside in the cold when you weren't allowed inside in case you gave each other COVID, and we edited his manuscript in the hope that we could have a new version published for the centenary of the discovery of insulin. Well, we submitted the manuscript to Aberdeen University Press in April 3 years ago. It wasn't ready in time for that. We hoped the Nobel centenary wasn't ready in time for that. But today, next push of the button, I can tell you that Aberdeen University Press, don't hold your breath, because they say sometime in 2025. Who knows, we might make it coincide with MacLeod's Nobel lecture on the 26th of May, but let's see. So you heard it first here. Thank you.
Okay, I don't need that. Okay, everyone. Nothing remains but for me to say thank you for attending this afternoon. It's been wonderful to have you all here, and I want to roll out a personal thanks to all the Canadian contingent that have come across the pond, many thousands of miles to be here in front of you and speak, and also to Professor Erling Norby for his contribution too. It's been an absolutely wonderful afternoon. I'm so delighted this has come off. And the last thing I want to do is to thank the exceptionally kind sponsors for everything they've done to make this Toronto 4 event, or weekend of events, and the symposium a possibility. A particular shout out goes to CNR International, that's Canadian Natural Resources, for sponsoring this actual symposium. So all the hospitality that was out there, the hire of the venue, etc., was kindly donated by, or facilitated by a sponsorship from CNR. So I'm looking at the guys, are you still here? Yeah, there we go. So a round of applause to CNR for making today possible. Safe journey home, everyone, and I hope you've enjoyed your afternoon. Thank you.